I've been kind of working on this whole idea of, the question that was put to Jesus, what
Mm.
is truth? And he never answered. So I thought of you. Let's ask Jonathan.
Jesus didn't
or
answer, so let's ask Jonathan. I love it.
or more specifically, one of the reasons I thought of you, Jonathan, is that very often our appreciation for truth opens us up to change our ideas, and very often our changing ideas, our changing understanding results in relationships changing.
Yeah.
And over the years, we have met multiple people who are in some position where they say, wow, I believe that, but if I had to make that known, I would, lose my job, lose my position. So,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that. People have got to make a judgment for themselves as to what they
Right.
are willing to reveal.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
then, amongst those multitudes of people that say that, we've met some people in between who have said, this is worth following no matter what the consequences
Yeah.
and no matter what the price to be paid. And that's why I thought of you. I know that you paid a price for, you know, having the integrity to uh, to say what you believe,
Yeah.
for your words and your actions to harmonize. And so I wanted to put that question to you. What is the attraction, or how would you define, is it truth? Is truth the best word to call it, the pursuit of truth, or is there another thing that you would name this quality that draws you beyond your current place into something larger?
Mm. So let's just get right into it then, man. Let's
Mm,
go. Yeah.
yeah.
What is truth? I think that there is like a propositional truth,
Mhm.
bullet points,
Mhm.
codified things that you can write down that are helpful and maybe factual. And then there's embodied participatory truth, as you relate to that thing, as you interact with that thing, um, what happens? I mean, like the first thing that comes to mind, like for a Christian, they may say, "Oh yeah, it's truth that God is love." Well, it's one thing to have that written down on a piece of paper. It's another thing to embody that and to try to figure out how then how then do I live? And once that gets inside of me, how will it work itself out? Because, well, love, is a pretty abstract concept. And I think that what I think is it's always trying to work itself out in small, the smallest possible practical expressions. Otherwise, it's a little bit pointless.
Mhm.
So I'm constantly playing, whether or not I had the language for that when I was in the process of being excommunicated from our denomination or not.
Mhm.
I was probably not able to articulate it necessarily in that way, but just begin to formulate that.
Yes.
So I'm always constantly kind of in that dance, the oscillation between the written truth, so to speak, and the lived truth. Also, I mentioned mythical, so I think there's room to talk about mythical, but maybe
Yes.
I'll just pause there for now.
Yes. I like that because there's I think within the religious or faith community, there's a lot of emphasis on statements and propositional truth and the written truth, and even that definition of truth then gets even more narrow
Hmm.
to the place where there's this perception that a statement can be absolutely clear
Right.
and is not open for interpretation. It's just plain and simple and straightforward. And that kind of definition of truth, I think, becomes so small. To give you just a little illustration of that, we were invited by a friend to go to a Bible study, and the people did a great job, thoroughly enjoyed it, and then the person who was presenting it taught on Romans 1 and 2. And so we each read through it. It's maybe about 20 people or so. And then he got to verse 18 onwards of, the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness, and this rant against any kind of sexuality that is not the kind of standard within the Jewish culture. And his statement was, there's no other way of interpreting it. This is so clear. This is,
Hmm.
no matter what you say, there it is. And so I didn't want to be that person that at my first time at the new meeting, I want to say, may I say something?
Yeah.
But I kind of knew that if I had to be quiet at this time, I was going to be more upset with myself afterwards than what I was at that moment.
Right.
And so I just asked, would you mind if I commented? And I kind of just gave him another way of understanding that
Nice.
text.
And how'd that go?
Surprisingly good.
Great.
So I kind of offered the interpretation of, is it Douglas Campbell, where
Mm.
basically Paul never wrote letters to be read by an audience. It was more like a screenplay in which there are different voices, and you
Hmm.
find the different voice, the Jewish interlocutor with which he's having this conversation in verse 18 onwards, which is so clear after you've seen it, because in verse 16, 17, Paul says, the righteousness of God is revealed from heaven to everybody. It's this free gift. And then verse 18 is almost the opposite. No, the wrath of God is revealed
Mm. Mm.
from heaven against all ungodliness. And it went very well because the person who invited me, I think it was his second time with this group, that for him was a crucial moment
Yeah.
because it's that kind of dogmatic certainty that brought him to a crisis of faith.
Right.
And so to just be exposed to this possibility of another interpretation was a lifeline for him. So yes, even that first definition that you gave, the truth that can be found in statements, that truth always has a relationship to the interpreter.
Always.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know what strikes me about some of what you're saying is it's multi-layered
Hmm.
because a part of what I suspect, knowing you a little bit, a part of what I suspect happened is as you were responding, you were self-aware. You were probably trying to, regulate even your own nervous and anxiety system so that
Absolutely.
you would lean into what we might call the truth of love
Mhm.
as you're unpacking this definition. So it's not only in relationship with the other people around you, it's in relationship with your own understanding of who your identity is in the midst of love. So it works in multiple levels. Yeah, there's no way to divorce all of that. It's just false to assume that you can read anything, let alone some text that's been around for 2000 years
Mm.
and then just like independently come up with this really
Yes.
well, not only that, yeah, think about 2000 years of all the relationships that had to happen in order for those words to even appear on the page. I mean, there had
Yes.
to have been scribes and The scribes, of course, are bringing their own context into
Yes.
play as they rework things. And we know that about translations and paraphrases. That's why there's dozens of them in our day and age,
Yeah.
which is both good and also terrible. But we know certain theological groups come along, and I'm no exception, by the way. I do the same thing. So when I come, I look at it through a particular filter. So I find all of that really, really interesting how multi-layered and multifaceted
Yeah.
really getting at the truth really is.
Yeah. And as you were saying that, I was thinking there's two ways of perceiving that interpretive relationship with text. You can have an attitude of, well, perspectives and interpretations aren't really valuable. They're kind of
Mhm.
superfluous to the actual truth. The kind of attitude that says, well, everybody's entitled to their opinion,
Mhm.
and we'll tolerate one another. Or you can have the attitude of saying, it is in this interpretive act that the underlying truth is becoming even more evident,
Yeah,
is unfolding in a way that we haven't seen it before. That
yeah, you're right.
that it is the limitation and the finite temporal perspective that you have that gives this truth a beauty and a form that it has never had before. Yeah. So maybe if I think, how would you think about this idea that if we think of reality as this undergirding ground of our statements, of our experience, of our relationships, and then truth is the way in which that reality is presented. So if a statement presents reality fairly accurately, we can say it's true. But then we can take it beyond statements and we can say if your attitude, if your person, if your relationships unveils reality, then we can call it true because it
Mhm.
represents that reality accurately. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, there's something that's kind of tricky. It's hard to hold on to, which I think doesn't mean that it's not true, to borrow the word for a second. It
Hmm.
probably makes it even the more of the depth of truth when you can't quite wrap your brain around it. Sometimes that tells you that you're probably going in the right direction. But I think so. And there's something that strikes me about, yeah, the reality is as you describe it. I mean, this is a bit of, I'm not a physicist, of course, but this is a bit of quantum mechanics as I understand it too. Like in a very real sense, the observer messes with the actual reality of what is going on. So in a sense, it's been said that be careful how you see the world because that is how it is.
Hmm.
So as you're interpreting, like you could have interpreted that thing for those people and with those people and done it with a hard heart and a bitterness and potentially revealed a type of reality in that situation
Hmm.
that might you could have said in some ways was true, but you could have been using the same words, you know,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you can use the same words and bring your own uh, again sense of who you are as a body and as a person and as a soul because you don't have a soul. I think
Yeah.
it's healthier to say you are a soul. And you could be saying the same words, but because you're aware of all those other things, you're opening people up to also a reality
Yeah.
that is also true. So it's quite interesting how, especially when you start to throw a little bit of quantum thinking into it, how
Yes.
tricky this can be. But in general, I want to say yes, there's a factual kind of truth, and then there's a participatory lived kind of truth.
Yes.
and both are important and they both play off of each other and they're both kind of in flux all the time.
Mhm. Yeah. I certainly know there's been times where I spoke the truth, not with the love or the
Yeah.
kindness that I should have, and I felt horrible afterwards because I wasn't true to who I am. And
Yeah.
although my statements might have been accurate and correct,
Right.
I felt that horrible feeling afterwards because that wasn't the way to say it.
Me
It
too.
wasn't the way to
Absolutely.
communicate it. And so, again, there's that disconnection to truth.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I feel, we both enjoy Whitehead, and the philosopher Alfred North Whitehead, and he kind of brought this idea as well that reality is just what it is. It's not. He said kind of the way in which he would distinguish between reality and truth is that truth was on this presentational layer and reality continued. We could lie about it, we could lie about reality, or we can tell the truth about it, but it's more on that layer of how do we present it and how do we harmonize, shall I say,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
that underlying reality.
Right. And he's more interested, or I don't know if more interested, but he's definitely interested in beauty. And so
Yes.
he'll say things like, the fundamental aim of the universe is not morality,
Uh-huh.
it's beauty. And that speaks to again what you were saying, which I relate to as well. You can say things that are true,
Hmm.
but when your heart isn't right and your intention isn't right, it may not be beautiful. And I think that that undermines then the depth of the truth and colors it all to go in a particular way that may not be beautiful. And so the
Absolutely.
morality, it's a part of the discussion, but I think it's a thinner part of it's one slice of the bandwidth, and the fuller
Yes.
bandwidth is about this movement of beauty, and it's
Yeah.
always more challenging and difficult. And I've really appreciated that about Whitehead and open and relational kind of thinking. That's really helped me process that.
Yeah. So truth can be presented in a very unappealing, very
Unbeautiful, yeah, ugly.
ugly way. At the same time, not everything that is beautiful might be is true.
Mm,
And he brings about, so you can have something, a very deceptive depiction of something that's really beautiful, but it's just not true. But where Alfred North Whitehead kind of takes that thought further is that the most intense form of beauty is true, because
yeah,
truth has got this ability to do away with all the distractions, all the chaff, all the stuff that takes away from beauty. And so the highest form and the most intense form of beauty, he would say, is also true, which I love.
yeah.
I
I think
think.
sometimes I say something like, I yeah, I think I agree with you. I tend to say things more like something can be true and not beautiful, but if it's beautiful, it's probably true.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what you're saying, but I think you're also dividing beauty up also. So
Yes,
there may be
yes.
subsets of beauty. And it does beg the question, what is beauty? Like obviously our world is
Mm.
consumed with physical appearance kind of a beauty.
Yes,
So to be clear, I don't think either one of us necessarily think that's the depth of the matter. I mean, it plays a role,
absolutely. Yeah.
but the depth of beauty goes much, much deeper and has to do with well, back to Whitehead, it's harmonizing diversity.
Yes.
It's bringing contrast, these massive contrasts. And what's the biggest contrast? I think death and life is probably the
Hmm.
biggest contrast our brains can imagine. And the
Yeah.
Christian story does that really beautifully. It
Hmm.
brings these two seemingly completely opposite things together in a way
Yes.
that becomes, I'm doing this with my hands, that makes it like this beautiful movement.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a really interesting thing to think
I
of.
love that. I was just busy doing some painting today as well. And
Hmm.
again, appreciating that aspect of bringing contrasts together, bringing
Hmm.
vagueness and detail and all the tonal values. It's that very broad range of contrasts. If you can somehow find a harmony between them, we perceive that as beauty. And very often, I think, in our belief system, in some of our religious systems, there's a tendency to not wanting to go through the difficulty of always having to balance the discord with the order and the chaos with the order. We like to kind of just get a set of clear rules and everybody just stays within these boundaries and we've got the perfect order. But perfect order is also not beautiful. It's a dead
Right.
thing. I think
Right.
harmony is more this living balance between order
Yeah.
and chaos, between discord and so that kind of also takes truth beyond this realm in which we have a final grasp of it and we
Right.
control it and we can put it within our boxes. It's something that is living, something that invites a relationship, something that I guess makes us true, while maybe hopefully changing some of our views to be more accurate as well. I hope.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
wanted to, yeah,
go
go
ahead.
for it.
Well, I was just going to tell a quick story.
Yes, please.
When, after we went through massive loss, in this particular instance, I'm thinking of when after our daughter died, it's not uncommon for people to get lost in a project. And I think even more so, well, I started to say more so for males than females, but I think it's just probably plays out differently. But I will say that I've talked to lots of dads who have lost kids, and one thing that is almost always true is that
Mhm.
some project got started afterwards, like they built a shed or they started landscaping or whatever. And it's
Yes.
funny with me because I'm not particularly like I'm not a carpenter. My dad was and my brother is, but I'm not really built in that way. But a few months after or into this grieving process, down at our basement, we had an unfinished basement. And I picked up just randomly one day some wood pallets on the side of the road, took them home, tore them apart, and started putting them up on the wall to be our wall because we didn't have one. It
Mm.
was just it was concrete and then the oh gosh, I can't even think of the name of the
The
stuff.
plastering and yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't even the plaster. It was the stuff in between, the insulation.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying
Yes.
to say. So I just was covering up the insulation. I
Yeah.
had, it's so funny. I had, I had a miter box, which is a thing you can like move the saw this way.
Uh-huh.
But the funny thing was, I forgot that you could even angle it.
Mhm.
And sometimes I would cut the wood and I would angle it myself, which is not a safe thing to do. I had no, like, the studs weren't really even in the right place, and the thing
Mhm.
was completely haphazard. And for the next like 2 or 3 weeks, I was grabbing everywhere I went. I was grabbing wood pallets and things out of the back alleys, and my wife would just laugh, and I'd come home and she would be like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm finishing the basement." She's like, "Well, you're not a carpenter." And I'm like, "I know, but I'm pretending to be one." And it's
Yeah.
anyhow, I thought of what you were talking about with respect to beauty and discord and contrast, because what happened little by little is that whole wall and then another wall next to it became this collection of odd colored, different shape. The shapes weren't so much different because they were all pretty much the same kind of length of
Mhm.
wood and width, but the coloration was different. And after
Yeah.
a little bit, like I stepped back and I realized, oh, this is really beautiful, not because of the uniformity,
Hmm.
but because of the cracks and because of the
Wow.
coloration. Like you would have never set out to do that originally,
Yes.
but it was this weird, like really interesting entanglement of grief and loss and like I don't know what the hell else to do other than to go throw wood up on the wall and having a little bit of I have a bit of artistic, abilities to some degree
Hmm.
at least. It all of that forms into this what winds up being a beautiful thing. Long term, it's probably not beautiful because, that style of wall, in 50 years will be out of style. So
Hmm.
things change and
Yeah.
that's also in relationship with the larger
Yes.
context. But yeah, I hadn't thought of that for a long time. And you were
Yeah.
just talking about that. And there's something about the cracks and the contrast that makes it
Yes.
really beautiful. And there was something really true and
Hmm.
full of integrity about
Yes.
that whole process. That's a completely different discussion than saying, than trying to talk about grief, trying to talk
Yes.
about loss, which has its
Yes.
place too. But
Yeah.
the beauty is quite compelling, I think.
I think, and another project that I think came after that for you was the book.
Yeah.
Is it called
Lots of writing. Yeah.
Purple, the color of grief? Is that, do I
Indigo.
remember correctly?
Indigo. Yeah.
Indica. Oh my goodness. Profound book. If whoever
Thank you.
listens to this, go and get that book. It's a very easy and beautiful and touching read. But as you were speaking about the wall, I think part of what makes that kind of process so beautiful is that you weren't doing it for an audience. You weren't doing
Right.
it for anybody else. This
Right.
was your own process, and you weren't even doing it, as you said, with an end goal in mind.
Right.
You, you were just in the integrity of that moment of doing what
Hmm.
you felt to do there. And there's something very true and beautiful about that as well.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, Jonathan, I always enjoy our conversations, even if they short and quick. I think so much has been said already in this half an hour. Thank you for making time
Thank you.
for this, and yeah, we'll continue to pursue this beautiful truth, or the truth of beauty, or this mystery that draws us deeper into reality, however we want to name it.
Yeah. It's a great discussion and it's
Mm.
worthy of lots of conversations. It's been a lot of fun as always to chat with you.
Thank you, my friend. Bye bye.
All right. Take care.